So our first speaker today is Jared Angaza. He's a strategist, activist, and master storyteller. He's the executive director of the Human Space Program, and he works on many other organizations, which he will tell us about. He leverages collective intelligence and indigenous wisdom to harmonize humanity's relationship with Earth. Jared, what a delight to have you today. Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be here. I will start off today by honoring the Kumeyaay, which is the original indigenous stewards of the land I'm privileged to be calling in today from San Diego. It's like Mitakuye Yasin, which is a Lakota way of saying supreme gratitude to all that has come before us. I'd like to start off that way. I will start off also by saying, addressing my relationship with Human Space Program. As executive director there, I'll speak for a moment about our mission and how it relates to this discussion about sustainability. It's sort of a fundamental element of who we are. Also, we're happy to be partnered with Foundation for the Future, before I forget, and grateful for that, and grateful for sharing our community. I know a lot of the Overview Roundtable members are here, including Tim Chrisman and Rebecca. Thank you so much. The idea for the Human Space Program originated with Frank White, who is also on this call, in his book, The Overview Effect, Human Evolution and Space Exploration, back in 1987. That was 36 years ago. HSP is a central project to develop a citizen-authored blueprint for conscious space migration and stewardship of the solar ecosystem. We created this organization to inspire conscious space migration and ensure the sustainable, ethical, and inclusive stewardship of the solar ecosystem. And that includes Earth. This is, we're sort of extending our discussion off the planet that we live on and looking at what does it look like as we start to migrate off of that, and how do we do that mindfully and sustainably. Frank said a while back, I'll quote him here, "I hope people will come to understand that space exploration is not about escaping Earth, but is about coming to appreciate her more fully." I'll rest on that point for a second. I love that. And that is kind of the essence of the overview effect, I think, is that we see that people having the privilege to go out into space and look back at this beautiful blue marble we live on, have come back with this greater heightened appreciation of the planet that we come from, of the fragility and the beauty, all of those things. And most of them have come back with a heightened sense of responsibility about how to steward the planet that they live on as well. Talk more about that soon. In the discussion, in the lead up to this discussion today, I guess there was kind of three overarching questions about, in regards to sustainability, and how does this help us become multiplanetary as a society, and how does this help us now, and why should the public care? Very good questions, and I'll address those kind of collectively in the presentation today. So I think in any time, I'm a strategist, by the way, by trade. So I'm always, kind of like looking, what's all the elements that play here? What are the considerations? I get hired often because of just experience and kind of understanding all the things to consider. So here are some considerations about sustainability I think are important for us as we begin the conversation. There is first of all, there's a perception in the space, or that the space industry is polluting the environment. We talk about sustainability, we talk about the impacts on the environment is typically the first one that comes up, though I'm going to get into a few other elements of sustainability as well. It's, by the way, that is happening, sure. Anytime we send something with rocket, fuel into the sky, it's going to affect the planet negatively. For now, that is true. It's also important to understand that these companies are creating innovations in propulsion at a very, very rapid pace. That is, if we look at the, just for perspective, if we were to take the commercial airline industry, put it all together and look at the annual carbon emissions, and then take the space industry and look at our rockets going into space and all that, and add that up over a year's time, even with increasing space flights that we have right now, or with commercial and all that, we would have to increase the rockets going into space by 47,000% just to get to what we have today with our commercial airlines. So just a little perspective on this as we get started in the conversation. I think it's important to understand that also from that space exploration, we are seeing some tremendous discoveries about how we can live more sustainably on the planet today. So I think it's important to start with that little piece of knowledge in our perspective. The next, I think I just want to talk about the idea of sustainability in space specifically. I think that is asking, when we talk about sustainability in space, it's how do we define sustainability? How do we prioritize it? How do we achieve it? What makes it, or what does it mean in the end, I think, for Earth? I mean, a lot of us, certainly environmentalists, are asking that question. What does it mean for Earth as we do this? What we value and prioritize most as humans, I think, we either intentionally end up creating it or we simply allow it to happen. So it's our priorities. I often will look at a situation and say, hey, your priorities are showing, because we can see what you've prioritized by what the fruit of that is. I often wonder if alien civilizations were to come to this planet, what they would surmise of what we're prioritizing just by looking around. Something I think about a lot. I think some of the big questions about sustainability in space are about the fact that we obviously haven't mastered sustainability here on Earth. Just hit the elephant in the room here. So what, we're asking questions like, what is this? What will happen? What do we think will happen as we migrate off the Earth? What are we expecting? Are we escaping Earth and trying to start over? Are we supposed to stop space exploration and then harmonize our relationship with Earth and then carry that on? That's come up a lot. Are we to do them all simultaneously? And if so, how? I think it's important to remind ourselves, again, what the term sustainability actually gets into and all the considerations, because it has been so overused and misused and misappropriated over the years. But I do think that the original implications of sustainability are exactly what we should be focusing on today. It generally refers to the ability of a system, a process, or activity to continue over time without depleting or damaging the resources on which it depends. It's important. So this obviously can refer to like a wide range of context, but anything from environmental sustainability to social and economic sustainability. And it's important to understand the actual like all the elements that are considered in this. One of them is resource use. Sustainability requires responsibility or responsible use of natural resources such as water, land, energy. And it means using resources in a way that we should be using resources in a way that allows us to regenerate or replenish over time rather than depleting them faster than what they can be replaced. That's what we keep running into in the resource department. I'm excited for the day when we can get our resources from asteroid belts and things like that, and we can treat this beautiful planet as a sanctuary. That's part of why I'm here in the space community, is in the hopes of things like that happening, and I do believe it can. Environmental impact is another aspect of this, of sustainability. It requires us to minimize the impact of human activities on the natural environment, including reducing pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, and other forms of environmental degradation, and so on. There's also a social and economic equity aspect of sustainability. I think people forget some of that sometimes. It requires us to ensure that the resources are distributed fairly and that all people have access to basic necessities such as food, water, shelter, etc. It's a very important aspect of sustainability that I find is often kind of in the back corner of a conversation, if at all mentioned. It also requires us to think long-term, like this long-term perspective. There's a guy, Ari Wallach, that I really love his teachings. He has a process, I guess, and a book by the same name called Long Path. And it's this kind of long path thinking that is really beautiful. It's longpath.org, by the way, if you want to check it out. But I really love Ari's work on long-term thinking, and what he says, talks about us being good, becoming good ancestors. I love that idea. Being intentional about how we show up and what it means for the ripple effect for the people coming after us. Another aspect of sustainability is interconnectedness. It's of our different understanding, how our different systems and processes, and looking to seek to find solutions that balance competing priorities and minimize unintended divisive consequences. We have to understand our innate interconnectedness as we develop, as we look at sustainability. The overview effect has been one of the most profound experiences that we've noted of articulating maybe the profundity of our interconnectedness. So by taking these considerations into account, individuals, organizations, governments, and so on can work to promote sustainability in lots of ways, from natural resources and that management to urban planning and business practices and so on, all the way down to space exploration. So as we talk about sustainability, this is what we're really talking about. It's important, like when I say the word sustainability, I'm covering all of those aspects, all of those and more. Not just the environmental aspects, but also the social and economic implications and all that. And we have to consider all of these important factors, I think, if we are going to have a sustainable situation. We're discovering new important considerations every day also. So it's also important, I believe, that our concept of sustainability evolve as we do. All right, so let's look at the reality of space exploration. I'm an environmentalist, and I've had a lot of interesting conversations about this. So I think framing is important. Let's start with the idea of exploration, just here on Earth. No one, maybe I don't think anyone anyway believes that we shouldn't have left Africa as humans 60,000 years ago, as we began to migrate around the Earth. We came up to the north and explored, and then all over into the Western world and so on, and we're still exploring today. There are vast swaths of our ocean we haven't even looked at, and areas of forest and things like that we're still discovering new things and new species and all that today. But exploration has always been pivotal in our evolution. It's evolving us into who we are today. The challenges of exploration, experimentation are what draw out our most human expressions, I think. It's where we find who we are. It leads to discovery, and it leads to this diversity and depth as a human species as well, which I think is very important. It's in our genes. T.S. Eliot said, "We shall not cease from exploration, and in the end of our exploring, we will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." And again, I think that's articulated really well with the overview effect experience. When people have left, and there actually, I should have gotten that quote. I can't remember what it was, but the quote about we went to the moon and did all these things, but it really in the end helped us to understand our relationship with Earth all the more in all new kinds of ways. And really, not just to understand, but I think thank you, Rebecca. I think to have a heightened respect and gratitude for the Earth and the fragility, again, as well as the magnitude of just beauty and awe that it brings. So exploration is a part of how we discover, I think, who we really are, who we can be. We don't really begin to understand our own true depth and abilities until we're pushed to our, past our limits. We have to overcome something challenging. That process can often, deepen our capacity for empathy as well. And I think that's an important part. And another quote from another astronaut, John Glenn, he said, "To sit back and let fate play its hand out and never influence it is not a way a man was meant to operate." We as human beings must be willing to accept that we are not perfect, that we are not infallible, that we can make mistakes, but we must know that we can make a difference, that we can, through our process of exploration and discovery and knowledge, make the world a better place. And that kind of points a little bit to how I came into this discussion. I came in at the space community as a human rights activist and environmental activist. I learned of Frank White's work, and as an activist, I was living in Rwanda or Kenya, I think at the time, and I was in Rwanda, and I recognized this example in the overview effect of our interconnectedness, and I was looking for ways to speak more eloquently about interconnectedness, and lo and behold came Frank White, who speaks very eloquently about it. Um, and I, along with Frank, look at the Earth as this living, breathing organism. We're part of it. You know, it affects us. We affect it. We can see that. We are, I think, anyway, all Earthlings. You know, someday we'll be Martians and Lunarians and Salandrians, whatever we're going to call ourselves, living in other places in the world. But for now, we're all Earthlings. We come from Earth, and she's still our most optimal environment for supporting life as we know it. And I care a lot about humanity and the awe-inspiring planet we're privileged to live on. So I've spent my life studying human behavior, economics, and strategy. I realized at one point that if I wanted to be a really effective activist, I'd better also understand economics and capitalism. So I studied them and still do. Then I worked in those systems, inside those systems, cultivating sustainability, inclusivity, and diversity, et cetera. And later had another epiphany. And I thought, well, I realized that the people designing and developing our future in space sort of just designing our future in general. So I'd like to be part of that conversation. I want to influence our future. And it would be, you know, by that rationale, strategic for me to work in the space community. So as I was sort of enamored with the overview effect, I joined Frank in this discussion and the philosophical and consciousness discussion and I've, you know, over the last 8 years, I've realized that this community is made up of a lot of people that not only care about the vitality of our humans and planet, there are also people that are really working hard to ensure it. I've been delighted to see that here in our space community. The people designing our future in space are also, I think, the most likely candidates to help us figure out how to overhaul agricultural practices that are destroying the Earth's ecosystems and create sustainable sources of energy. And I think that will have a very positive impact on our economics as well. The space community is thinking about how we all survive off the planet. The foundation of sustainability or sustainable strategy is to know all of the elements that need to be considered, like we talked about before. Folks trying to survive in outer space are good at considering a whole lot more elements than we usually would think of because they have to. Everything depends on it. You know, if they're in the ISS and there's a pinhole, everybody dies. So we got to pay attention to the details. So as it pertains to explorations or space exploration, the sustainability discussion isn't just some social responsibility thing we're getting into. It's a matter of life and death, success or failure. Space community is constantly studying sustainability because we can't afford to operate in space any other way. So space it's sort of like this canvas, I think, for what are, like, if we wanted to know what Earth would be like if we destroyed all of our ecosystems, it'd probably be a lot like space. So we have this canvas to work with now. Many of our sustainability practices on Earth today came from discoveries that we made in space. And we were looking at how do we survive in space? We came up with environmental monitoring, you know, all the Earth observation satellites and all those programs for looking at environmental change, deforestation, ocean temperature, things like that. It covers weather forecasting. We have satellites that have the ability to track weather to help us respond more effectively to hurricanes, tornadoes, and things like that. There's been a reduction in the impact of some of those things. We have renewable energy, all the renewable energy aspects that we've had to dive into to be able to operate in space that obviously then have come back to Earth and helped us have more renewable energy here. Water resource management is a big one. I mean, we have to recycle urine in space. If we can do that, I think that's going to help us figure out some things here on Earth, and it certainly has. there's also a justice and activism aspect of our space observation that I think is not widely known. I worked in Sudan and Rwanda, Kenya, Congo, in these areas where we had monitoring systems that were monitoring militias and things like that to watch activity, and then there was intervention. Suffice it to say, I saw some victories through all that. So I think there's sustainability is one of those things that when it comes to talking about space, it is it's intrinsically built into what we're talking about here. And I think, we look at the ISS, we had 21 continuous years of humans from 15 different nations that have been living and working in space on the International Space Station, which has transformed our understanding of the planet that we live on today. I think it's the same group of humans that are going to help, figure out how we sustain and become sustainable on this planet as we're also moving off of it. We have to understand that human behavior and culture are a big part of this. The culture, it refers to our beliefs and values and customs, behaviors, all the things that make us a society, with our languages and religions and social organizations and so on. Culture plays such an important role. Even the epigenetics and those aspects play such an important role. And sustainability is, I think, important to understand that it's only relevant as it pertains to humans. If there were no humans here, we wouldn't be talking about sustainability. The Earth would just continue. But we need concepts like sustainability in order to prevent our own, self-destruction. That's a good first step.
Yeah.
So I know that I have 19 minutes on my timer here. That's okay. I'm watching it as well. But I mentioned let's see. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here, but I think that we have a beautiful opportunity here for a better conversation. And if we want a sustainable planet, I think we need to make it culturally popular. I spoke a little bit about the culture part. We need to financially incentivize it. I think that once we figure out how to do that more effectively, we're going to solve a whole lot of problems. So I think, it's important to ask let's see. There's a question about what do we do right now? What can we do? And I think what we need to do is start right here on Earth. This is where we practice being good humans. It's in other words, it's where we get to be good stewards of our environment and our resources. This is our chance to become stewards rather than conquerors. We say at HSP a lot. On Earth, we've been able to get away with some experimentation and neglect and even some destruction. We can't do that in space. We don't have that luxury, if you will. So I think that this being in space and that canvas forces us into greater levels of cooperation and unity. And I think that's part of how we continue to evolve. We at our Human Space Program have created I'll put a link in here, but it's a campaign called Making Space for the Environment. So we're having environmental discussion. We also have an inclusion council. We're talking about inclusion and representation, all of those kind of things. I believe the most important thing we can do is prioritize sustainability and all of our efforts and lead by example. Require other organizations to operate sustainably as well in order to have our support and patronage, and work to amplify the message. My quick recap here is that sustainability isn't just about protecting, ecological resources. It's about environmental impact for sure, but also social and economic equity, long-term perspective, interconnectedness, and so on. And it depends on our ability to operate sustainability, or space exploration depends on our ability to operate sustainably. It all also depend on us operating sustainably here on Earth. And that's what we're doing here at Human Space Program. Protecting the garden in which the Earth sits. That's the solar ecosystem. We're just kind of extending that love of the Earth off of it as well. And recognizing that our discovery leads to diversity and depth and all kinds of things that we want to have as a society. I don't know, I think that as we attempt to expand off the planet, we're likely to continue learning a lot about how to cultivate a more harmonious relationship with our natural environment. We've seen that already. And maybe the process of working together to design all of this, I think it will help us truly come together in harmony with this phenomenal planet that we call home,
Yeah.
and maybe even each other. So
Yes.
thank you all for listening, and I'm always excited when people are excited about talking about sustainability. So
Wow,
thank you.
Jared, that is so beautiful. And we can see your passion, and we can see that you could speak with us all day long on this. This is something so inside of your heart, and that you're dedicating your life to, not just space, but to the earth and to the environment, and to a beautiful culture where we give back and we share and we honor. And we ran out of time to ask you any questions. How can people get in touch with you? Would you put your information in the chat? And then please do, everyone, Jared's going to put a piece that he wrote about making space for the environment. He'll put that in the chat too. Please read and share. We are spreading awareness about space sustainability and the importance of it and the longevity of it, and how it will certainly, Jared mentioned capitalism and business, long-term sustainability actually pays us back. And it's good for investing also. So it's not just a one-sided political argument here. This is for everyone. And so thank you so much, Jared, for your contributions. I know that you're working together with Frank White, and we did put your organization in the chat. I'm also part of that organization, humanspaceprogram.org. Please visit us, please get involved, please learn more about space sustainability and about the long-term project that Frank White has founded and that Jared is spearheading. So thank you so much, Jared. What an honor to have you today. And if there's nothing more, we're going to move on to our next guest.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, great.